In the fall, we will host the first ever Patriot Games, an unprecedented 4-day athletic event featuring the greatest high school athletes, one young man and one young woman from each state and territory. But I promise there will be no men playing in women's sports. You're not going to see that. You'll see everything but that.
Welcome back to another episode of What the X with Brendan. This is episode 87. I appreciate everyone that's tuned in. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus once again, trying to get consistent, but hey, when I have the time, let me drop a video. So without further ado, episode 87, as you guys already saw from the clip, President Trump announced quite a while ago the Patriot Games 2026, as he's calling them. A lot of people have been chiding him, have been saying things like, oh, this is Hunger Games 2026, drawing parallels between the one male and one female representing their state, kind of representing the districts as they're in Pan Am, I think what it's called, with the Hunger Games, as everybody remembers. But let's just go right with a tweet here. Freedom 250 reposted this. Freedom 250 is the nonprofit responsible for organizing these events, including, what happened with the UFC event just prior to July, because it was June 14th with Trump's birthday. A lot of crazy stuff going on with the entertainment aspect of what the administration's doing. But the Washington Times was reposted by Freedom 250 with saying, President Trump will travel to Geneva, Ohio on Tuesday to attend the Patriot Games, a high school athletic competition that he helped launch as part of America's 250th anniversary. So yeah, clearly this is a pretty big year for the United States. Shout out to the 250th anniversary. And we have this high school competition going on across all the states, which I think is a cool idea. I also do think that it's a little Mr. Beast-ish with the the arenas that they have set up and these like training facilities, almost like American Ninja Warrior, it seems like. I haven't watched it myself, but I do know that it's currently going on right now. There is another tweet here in relation to it, and this one's from the U.S. Department of Education. The Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education is Secretary Linda McMahon, former wife of, I don't know if they're still married, but of Vince McMahon, the WWE owner. And then U.S. Department of Education says the Patriot Games are underway. Tune in to see America's best and brightest compete for scholarships and the honor of being America's victor. And it started today, which is Monday, guys. Hopefully you're seeing it on Tuesday, and Trump's already in Ohio where all this is taken off. And there's a lot of controversy because of the selection process, because it seems like it's more all the athletes, some for the most better part, is right-leaning, conservative, Christian values, which maybe some have argued about freedom of religion. But at the same time, I mean, the United States was like the founders. They did have their foundation built up on Christianity, I feel like. But freedom of religion, it is true. That is something that we should hold sacred. So I don't know how people feel about either it being too pro-Christian, or maybe people are like, hey, Christians have been getting a bad rep for too long. It's nice to see a little bit of patriotism. It seems like every day there's another reason to be hating America and protesting. It seems so many people are out just dissatisfied with the government. I feel like maybe they could be doing better for us. And I'm not one to just be arguing for argument's sake. I do hope that the left and right can find some kind of middle ground. People be talking about Zoran Mamdani and how crazy radical leftist he is. And believe it or not, guys, I may disagree with his policies, but if he's actually looking out for his constituents and he's making real progress that can be seen, then I'm all for it. So who am I to judge someone if they're getting results done? The main thing is that these people are doing what's best for their constituents, which I feel like we never see. And that kind of plays into this larger discussion here about Patriot Games, celebrating the 250th. But really, what is the Patriot Games but a to me, it's almost like, look how great we are without showing really, truly how great we are. Because I feel like that unity is missing, right? I feel like if it wasn't so, it's almost like I hate to be the guy because I always hate when people compare Trump to Hitler. But sometimes it's like you look at parallels and there was the Hitler Youth, like the Boy Scouts of America for Germany at the time of World War II. And it was pretty problematic, but how can you go against what everyone's doing? And that was such a big thing in the society at the time. So where I hope we're not underlooking this, and this is more problematic than maybe we're giving credence to, where if this is Christian exceptionalism or white exceptionalism or some kind of counter reaction to the fatigue that I feel like a lot of conservative traditional white Americans, specifically in the male demographic, have been feeling like they're left on the back burner, or that maybe they're not being represented the same as minority constituents, and this is some kind of counter reaction, like I'm saying, an overcorrection, if you will, because I would hate for this to become some kind of eugenics thing of like, again, I kind of used that phrase already, white exceptionalism. I hope that's not the case. I mean, I think there is, other athletes that are not white that are in this competition. I did see one African American student, I believe from maybe Texas or something. So I do know that they have some diversity there, but I also know that there's a lot of criticisms coming from mainly the left here when it comes to the selection process and the whole what's the word I want to look for? I don't want to say fascism, but you know what it's like. You're trying to represent the brand. There's some propaganda, maybe some state propaganda potentially, and we look at Russia or we look at China with their state-run media, and we think we're so much better. But there is a lot of conditioning and brainwashing that could be going on with these kind of things. That's a really negative way to look at it, right? I'm hoping that it's super positive. I like to think, okay, this because this is the youth, right? This is America's youth, and it's great to see them competing. It's great to see fierce competition with who's the most athletic, and without all the political BS or wokeism. I guess it's still political, right? If you're looking at it from a right conservative leaning viewpoint, that is a demographic that is being kind of promoted more than any other demographic here. So there's some politicizing here, you could say, but it's still like, at least there's some science kind of rooted here, and they're like, hey, men versus men, women versus women. Again, culture wars are a real thing, to where I think they kind of distract us from the main stuff going on, like what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz, the economy, the market. There's so much craziness and violence going on. I always just wish for world peace. And so maybe the Patriot Games, instead of being propaganda, instead of being compared to maybe like, the Hitler Youth of the 1930s Germany, let's try to be positive, right? Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is the youth of America coming with American values and promoting things that a lot of people feel are, almost on the back burner, as I said before. And then we're going to get one more tweet in here from Secretary Linda McMahon, who is, again, the Secretary of the Department of Education, which is a very big responsibility. And she had this to say: "We're making education great again, to make America skilled again." And it's interesting, the emphasis on skilled when you're talking about skilled labor or trade work, and this kind of pivot from the traditional go to college, that's how you make a future, because with the AI and replacement of certain jobs, and then the need for construction, the need for blue collar work, is very essential. So maybe that's what we're seeing there, with like trying to motivate the youth to go out, roll their sleeves up, and get some real work done. But I'm trying to stay positive. I can also see the criticisms. I get why some people might have some reservations about the Patriot Games. It is on ESPN on the app apparently, and you don't have to be subscribed, which is interesting. I don't know how that works exactly. Check it out by all means. I think I'm going to try to check it out, just see what the programming looks like. And just shout out to all those young high school athletes that are competing in this thing and trying to earn a scholarship through it all. And that's I want to try to give an uplifting ending to this story rather than the anti-Trump fear mongering. Yeah, he's not a perfect guy by any means, but maybe this was an idea that was good and it can be executed well and can uplift the youth into saying, hey, you know what? Let's do some sports. Let's get active. Let's stop the doom and gloom and let's be positive here and get our reps in. So at the end of the day, I think that the Patriot Games is not a bad thing, and I don't think it should be compared to the Hunger Games. I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering and division. I just kind of wish I can see the criticism with the selection process. All these athletes are clearly going to be pro-Trump. It would be nice to see just a wider variety of high school athletes to better represent how the high schoolers are thinking. Whether or not we agree with what they're thinking, that is the future, whether we like it or not. So, promising. Hope that everyone does well, no injuries, and that they can just show that, hey, America, we got some athletes too. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of What the X. Give me your thoughts on what you think about the Patriot Games, if you've tuned in at all, if you know anyone that's competing, if you have any other criticisms you'd like to add to the mix here. But it is a controversial thing, maybe more controversial just because Trump's attaching his name to it. Maybe if it was any other president, this might not be a big deal and might be more celebrated and applauded. But because of the legacy of this president and because of the division and polarization that we see today, it's hard to tell, right? But I'm hoping that this is an investment in America's youth and America's future and that it's a good thing. So thank you everyone for watching. Hoping you're catching this maybe before you're going to watch it on ESPN. I don't know. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe. And as always, everybody love everybody. Shout out. Thank you, guys. If you like that clip, feel free to click on this clip or even this clip. And then, hey, don't forget about that clip over here. Thanks, guys.